There we go.
Hey TJ, how's it going?
Good. Good.
Awesome, awesome. You have that spectacular background going, which is amazing.
Well, I like to make a splash on Zoom.
I just told the folks here we'll be starting in a couple of minutes here. So we'll wait for people to trickle in. But while we wait, do you have any fun plans for the holidays this season?
No, seeing family, pretty low key. But looking forward to that. Going to the great state of Ohio. So ready for some flat landscapes and but no, it's always a good time going to
Are
see the
you
folks.
are you driving or are you flying?
We drive because basically flying it's about the same amount of time.
Got it.
So we make a road trip out of it.
Cool. Awesome. Well, hopefully the road trip is pretty good. You have all your supplies ready to go. Do you make any pit stops along the way? Any sights to see?
No, not usually. I mean, there's not much. I mean, you can go through Pittsburgh, but which we have done, but just straight on into Aurora, Ohio, which is right outside Cleveland. It's a pretty quaint kind of neighborhood community. But it's a lot of fun. It's very compared to DC. It's a lot low key to go to my in-laws house, so I like it. It's a good change of pace.
Got it. Well, I really don't like road trips, so I'll take your word for it. I've done because I'm from San Francisco, so we do a lot of road trips to LA before, and man, those 8 to 10 hour road trips is just a killer. How long does it take for you to drive from you're Washington, right, to Ohio?
Yeah, if everything goes, it's usually 5, 6 hours, maybe. Yeah, I would say it's not the most exciting travel. I've done a road trip like through Canada in an RV before, and that flew by because there's like amazing terrain, like through the mountains. But going from DC to there, it's pretty flat, other than like the Appalachian a little bit. But
Well, cool. Well, safe drives there. I think we can go and start now. It's 11:02. So thanks everybody for coming on in today. If you folks don't know me, my name is June, and I am a developer advocate here at Zeppelin, and I'm part of the community crew here. And today I'm joined by my, I guess not a good friend, but my friend, TJ, who is a senior product designer, who is also a design ops lead over at Washington Post. TJ, do you want to go ahead and share a little bit about what you do?
yeah, so I've been a designer for a while now, and I work at the Washington Post. I started as in a visual storytelling initiative, so that just means systemizing things that our great newsroom design team makes, which is a lot of stuff with Olympics and the elections, and like just working that in a way to be applied throughout the site, throughout our products, and helping partner with them. And then from there, I kind of got into this design ops I guess growing department. It's not really a department of one, but helping our really growing team kind of manage all their resources. And as we try to take on more processes, try to align the team there. And I also am recently kind of really into our new games initiative. So trying to build out the Washington Post games, which we'll talk about a little later.
Super cool. So you start off as a senior product designer, and then design ops lead, and now you're doing gaming at Washington Post. And to remind the folks on the call, if you don't know what Washington Post is, it's one of the major news publications here we have in the US. I don't know where it ranks, but I think it's the top 3.
It's the best. It's the
The
best.
best. It's the best. Obviously, it's the best. It's the only newspaper around. But
exactly.
Thanks for sharing that, TJ, and sharing a little bit about what you do. So let's jump right into the meats and potatoes of this talk. Talking about design systems, and I feel like that's a hot topical thing among a lot of developers, a lot of designers in our space here. And I see that, a lot of companies who have, I guess, reached like a mature status in their design system usually share that out to the wider community. and they open source it to better the whole community. Can you share a little bit about why Washington Post decided to open source your amazing design system?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. I think the one most pragmatic reason is recruiting. I mean, as we grow kind of our team and we want our engineering partners to like really understand kind of the direction that we're trying to take some of our design system, we want to have it open there for them to review and talk about, and really if they're interested and have it available and be like, that's what I want to get into, because those are the kind of people and mindset that we want. But there's also some softer reasons. We like transparency. It's journalism, right? So we kind of, even though we're the product design team, we try to embody a lot of the same qualities that our newsroom holds up. So that transparency and accountability, it sounds extreme and we don't really have a process here, but we like, having these things out there holds us accountable. So like with everything that's public, has that, public eye to it. So we're trying to make it the best, most documented, explained design system. And really that goes into the community aspect of design systems in general. I mean, you might be aware that there are a lot of design systems out there. You can pull up like Adobe's design system is public, you can go look at it. And we want to be part of that community that, at least in my career, I've seen engineering really benefit from, where, they share code and they share conversations about what they're doing, regardless of their positioning. And I think design, as it kind of blends more and more into engineering, and engineering blends with design, we want to be part of that community as well, and design and build that and build that rapport. So, I imagine all of us on our team would love to have the design system of the Post be just one right up there with all the other ones that people reference, as well documented, well built out, and kind of admired for other people. So I think that, I think that's about covers kind of the main points of why we've done that.
Yeah, so you hit on four main things there. I just want to reiterate to the people that are watching right now. So talking about recruiting, that makes sense to share with the community to know, what you folks are doing, transparency, being accountable, and then to give critical feedback to make sure, it keeps growing. And for those of you who don't know what the design system looks like, TJ, do you mind sharing that really quick, just to show what the Washington Post design system looks like? Great, sweet.
Yeah. So this is it. It's build.washingtonpost.com. You can find it's ever growing and changing, and we've got a lot of things that we want to add into this. But you can see it's got our tokens and our components. So you can see kind of our spacing requirements, our sizing, shadow, the index, and then also like the components, the kind of the realization of those foundations. And these are things that we work with our design team to kind of ingest based on prioritization and conversation of kind of what we need. So you'll see a lot of basics in here, the ever beloved button and checkboxes. So yeah, I encourage everyone to take a look and look around, and we're really proud of it, and I hope you get something out of it. And there's also even resources on here, so tutorials on how we use the design system in general that you can look at, and workshops as well. So it's more than just the pieces.
Yeah, and the tutorials are videos, right? Like it kind of guides you through different aspects of the design system.
Yeah, there's videos, so it's not just, you don't have to just read it all. So it's very accessible and kind of how you want to learn and get to know the design system. So I encourage everyone to take a look.
Cool. Yeah. So open sourcing a design system is great because you share with the community, and for that whole recruiting thing as well. But what about like maintaining it? So once it's out there, people will give you this feedback, and I'm sure you have a backlog of of changes you want to make. Who maintains all of that?
Yeah, so it's a joint effort. We have a small design system team that we're looking to grow and build as the value is proven and grown in turn. And they've made great strides. And our product designers are working in partnership with them to add into this. So we have a very refined process on how designers can submit or request different components to be added as we need it. And the WPDS team, as we call them, they prioritize it based on what they see and what their plans are and what their priorities are. So it's a constant conversation and a group effort, and that we're finding it every day, and it's becoming faster and faster. So we've got a lot of stuff in the backlog because of that. And then, like I said, even the components that we have now, we call out criticisms of them or things that need to be improved upon, even if they're being actively used. So we use a combination of just good old conversation and Slack, right? And we also have different processes to submit things via JIRA or Slack, so they can get on a roadmap and be discussed in their refinement meetings and their roadmap meetings, to plan out the next steps.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I'm curious about, I'm sure internally you have your own set of feedback you have and your own set of things you want to build and deliver. How do you manage both the outside of what to build versus what you want to build on the inside?
Yeah, so I mean, just like everything we do, there's a lot of ways we make those decisions, and without context, I mean, it's I could just say a lot of ways. But I mean, we get feedback from our partners and our stakeholders of things that they want to see. We watch analytics and behavior of kind of like what's being used and where it's being used and the benefit of it being used. We have this design system paired with Figma, so we can track kind of when different components are being broken and removed from the system, and that kind of tells us that like maybe there's some changes that need to be made there. So it's a lot of different angles. It's kind of controlled chaos, controlled organization sometimes, but like I said before, it's a very group effort, and everyone, we really just inspire them to get really involved, because it makes the designers' job easier by allowing them to not redesign a button over and over again. It also makes the user's journey a lot easier, because we can be confident that the components we're using are built in with all parts in mind. So.
Got it. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I was always curious on how to manage all that stuff, because feedback's great, but there's only so much things you could do at a certain time, and there's an order of operations you need to do it in. And then lastly, I want to talk about, we talked about before about designers having some kind of the same opportunities as developers, specifically about the bounty programs within design systems. Can you share a little bit about how that works and how you manage these bounty programs?
So we don't really, well, as far as I know, we don't have any like bounty programs per se, but what we do is we kind of watch existing products that are happening in building, and that those designers will then kind of elevate kind of things that they're using over and over again. We have goals in mind, and we have goals for our designers to submit a certain amount of WPDS kind of suggestions every year. It's not like a hard goal, but we kind of encourage 4 to 5 submissions, right? And so that allows kind of it to be tied with their yearly reviews and being part of the team. And they all do a great job at it, submitting a very extensive, when they do submit new components, it's a discovery process that looks at different competitors, and then we go through a rigorous kind of concepting phase where we really kind of look, like I said before, we look at other communities and what they've done. And we build out kind of a very focused component at the very end that then is submitted and backlogged for engineering to develop. So it's a pretty rigorous kind of vetting for each one of those things, that's kind of tied to our daily goals, our yearly goals as a team.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Thanks for sharing that on why you folks decided to open source your design system. Now, switching gears to designers, we talked about this before as well, about designers wanting a unicorn tool, right? What does that mean in the designer world? What does a unicorn tool mean?
So I've been around for a bit on this, as tools have just, I mean, since I started, are like insane now. I think a lot of designers kind of get a little tool drunk, and they really get this vision. And this is because tools have gotten so much better that they kind of want one ring to rule them all, right? Like they want one place to work in. And I think, we're still not really there yet. And regardless, with good design, tools kind of sometimes get in the way of a design process. So we try to be really rigorous of kind of how we want to approach a problem and then apply the tools that fit that. And we have a set of core tools that we tend to use, that we use in our process.
Yeah, I've been hearing that a lot, where a designer might want a unicorn tool, a tool that does it all, right? A one-stop shop. I think a problem that I see is that it kind of goes back to the whole monolithic Microsoft days, right? When everything was combined into one big thing and started growing and growing and growing. And then people didn't even know where to find different stuff because it grew so big that you're like, oh, I didn't even know Microsoft could do this or this could do that, right? So I see a lot of designers as well being a little, as you put, a little tool drunk, right? And
Yeah.
just be kind of ring fest in only just one tool to rule them all, so to say.
Yeah, I mean, you can see a lot of tools can get feature bloat. And I think when you're looking at the size of a team that's supporting a tool, when you're adding so many features that are so all diverse, they sometimes can lack kind of refinement, right?
Mhm.
So when you look at a tool that is meant to do a thing, I was literally talking about this before this isn't a digital tool, but like I was talking to this before with a friend about the difference between an iPad and a Kindle, right? iPad can do a million different things, but a Kindle is specific to a reading experience. So it's good to balance kind of like what you're doing with the tool and not try to think and cram every single thing you're doing into one single tool, in my opinion, currently.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. iPad versus Kindle, I have both, and you buy Kindle for that one reason, is to read books very well and doesn't hurt your eyes and all that, and it does that one job extremely well, right? And it supplements the whole tech gear that you have. So you mentioned before that you're a design ops lead. So how do you manage your team of designers to not get them so tool drunk, or for them to just focus on one tool? How do you lead your team?
So I think I look at well, for one, I don't try to control the tools that people are using. I try to communicate, and I've been working ever since I've been in this role to communicate like core tools and core handoff of tools. So we have a set of tools that we use that are pretty much core to our process. So like one of them being, Zeppelin, another one being Figma, and they have very defined purposes and use. But outside of those primary tools, we don't try to, at least I don't try to say like, you can't use this tool, or you can't use that tool. It's really about communication between teams. So for example, designers are concepting in Figma, and that is what we concept in. You can share with other tools, but really your core work of concepting is typically done in Figma. And this is because our design system's attached to it, and a lot of our administrative structure for design is focused there, so it's going to be the most supported. That doesn't mean you can't go use a tool called Protopie, right, to communicate an idea of like animation, because it works better. And then handoff to development, it's the same thing with Zeppelin, right? Figma can do handoff, but to your point, we're trying to be very focused on the tool that is used in those communication touch points. So from Figma to Zeppelin, and especially since the concepting can create all these other artifacts that can kind of confuse the handoff to engineering, we try to be very intentional with not only the tooling, but what we are handing off at that point. So that's kind of that's the philosophy of it. We're finding it every day. But it's really, I would say, when you think of tools, you think of who's working in those tools. And then when you finish a certain phase, how are you communicating that? And we really focus on those communication points, because if you're working in one tool, that's great. But once you have to tell someone something else, that's what you need to really focus on.
Yeah, it's I think especially now when things are a little bit more remote, and I know Washington Post, you folks are back in the office there, but I think communication is critical for that, right? Is to make sure everyone's on the same page, and you can use your own tool, but there has to be kind of standard, like you mentioned, Figma for the ideation process, maybe Zeppelin for handoff, maybe JIRA for making sure all your tickets are handled correctly, right?
Mhm.
So that's great to share. Appreciate that. One thing that I want to kind of dig into or double click into, since you're a design ops lead, and design ops is like a very topical subject right now in terms of the whole design, also developer ecosystem. What does design ops mean to you? Because I feel like if design ops is like kind of like DevOps was 10, 15 years ago. Not a lot of people are talking about it, not a lot of people are implementing it, but they want to implement it. Can you share a little bit about what design ops means to you?
Yeah, I mean, I am looking at design ops as like a scaffolding for the team. Like I'm there to build and help processes of communication, the way we ingest and hand off work in a consistent manner, and also just processes within the team of like how like we are all defining our initiatives and our tasks. I try not to be super rigid about it. I like to give kind of a platform so that we can avoid things like blank canvas issues where people kind of just go, oh, where do I start?
Mhm.
Right. But my goal as a design ops person is not to take away that creative expression and how people get the job done. It's a way to allow someone, if you know, join the team, this is how we do things. These are the tools you can use to be creative in how you get to that expression and that end result. Um, so it's kind of a fine dance because I'm not trying, you know, design ops can sometimes come off as like you have to do it this way
Mhm.
and like be really rigid. And in some ways it kind of is, but you got to really pick where you're going to use that energy because not only is that unsustainable, but it's also not an environment I think a lot of designers want to work in.
Mhm.
So we're working to create like means and methods, like sharing, like when somebody does do a unique way to do a project and it does work out, you know, don't I look for those opportunities and try to ingest those in a way, and it's just like a design system, systemize it and communicate it and standardize it so it works for our entire design team. So that's kind of, I mean, yeah, I think that's kind of the and my philosophy on design ops and kind of my gold star and the vibe I'm trying to give out as I support the team, our growing and talented team.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I think, you know, you hit the nail right on the head for design ops being a way for people to get up and running really quickly. So they don't have any barriers and they know, like you mentioned, what tools to use. Um, can you, I think we mentioned before about how you structure it though, like the
Yeah,
horizontal versus vertical thing. And I think you prepared a slide, TJ. Do you mind sharing that with the audience here?
yeah, let me pull that up. So I like to show slides on this topic just because sometimes it can get a little, you know, for me personally, I like the visual aspect of this team, how we organize the team. But essentially the way we look at it and the way I look at supporting our team is we have these like horizontal practices. And these practices are our experienced teams. This is a way that we are able to support all of our different projects and all of our different engineering teams and our R&D and everything without allowing designers to feel so embedded on those teams that they're unsupported. Because we kind of work in a hybrid structure. Um, it's not a centralized structure and it's not an embedded in an engineering team. It's kind of this hybrid thing. So I'm personally on the story experience team, and
Mhm.
we have user stories that this is just one example to try to define those teams for new hires and keep the team aligned on what we're talking about. And these experience teams allow like our product managers to really know, okay, this is the team of designers that work on like articles. This is the team that works on the paywalls. These are the teams that work on the back end editorial tools. That would be like the create experience team. And each of these is led by a very talented design lead who
Mhm.
manages, I think on each team, it's like 5 to 6 designers, and they meet regularly. They're not separate teams. I know it says experience teams, but they are separate focuses within the product design team, and they communicate together. Um, and then
Really,
not,
really
oh, go
quick
ahead.
before you move on, if you want to go back one slide here. So just to be clear, there's 4 different teams in here, right? The story
Mhm.
experience, create, subscribe, and discovery team.
Yes, yeah.
And then as your role as a design ops lead, do you oversee all teams, or do you only focus on your story experience team? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, one, I would never use the word manage from a
Okay.
design ops perspective. I don't manage that. That is not the energy I try to give out. I help them communicate,
Okay,
right?
communicate.
Because their goals are to focus in on those experiences and really dig deep and really be specialized in this. But you can imagine that subscribe and story, discovery and create, there's a lot of cross work, right? And we don't want to silo each other. But we also, we want them to be supported in a team structure that's focused, but we want to silo them. So I look for ways to help them communicate openly, and look at things that one team is doing to bring to the rest of the team. So I'm kind of watching, listening, and seeing what's successful for them. And when I see appropriate, I sometimes come in and suggest certain things to individual team members. And guide the individual team members, or I talk to design leads on ways that they can kind of manage the process as a whole. So
Cool. Thanks for clarifying that. That makes sense.
yeah, so design ops is kind of more of a vertical practice in the sense that these are our vertical practices. So, it's not all just about experience teams, right? Those are like the core of our big four right now. But we also have these really talented specialty staff. We have a great research team that's been growing and making strides. We have a UX content team that is really refining how and what we're saying, which is super important. And then you see the WPDS as part of this, as one of these vertical practices, because they're also, they're working in all of those to kind of help the entire team. And then we also have like platform specific team members who focus on email or native apps or CMS and API. So these team members are sometimes embedded also in experience teams or focus maybe more on one experience team, but they're technically vertical practices that work in all of them. And so they have to manage their time, resources, and guidance based on the priorities of the post and of our team in general. And this can take a lot of forms. It can mean that they're literally in the meeting talking about certain work. They're giving guidance, like our content team is building a whole content style guide, right, which is a resource for all teams, even though they might be focused, like their personal time may be embedded in a certain project. So these are kind of the more, I really try to look to support these teams in a lot of ways. I'm still looking for ways to improve it, because you can imagine that can get, they're moving around and they're always on demand.
Got it. And just to clarify here really quickly, are these vertical practices in each of those four pillars talked about, each of those four teams, or is this overall spread across all those four teams you just mentioned?
Like I said, yeah, they are a resource for the whole product design
The whole
team,
product, okay.
right? And so they may at certain times be focused in a certain experience team, because there's only so many hours in a day and so many people. But that's why each of them look for ways to both be hands-on, depending on prioritization, and also offer guidance like research guides or a content style guide or the WPDS, right? Those individual team members may not be working directly with an experienced team at every single point, but they are always supporting each team with resources, guides, and things like that.
Got it. Cool. And looks like the API team's on here too. CMS API team.
Yep. That's a lot of our amazing create experience team, needs a lot of support in that regard, because there's a lot of interconnected tools on the back end that really make the post, be able to publish and be able to communicate our great newsrooms work.
Awesome. Well, that clarifies the whole horizontal versus vertical thing. Now moving on to, I think you skipped ahead here for the tooling that you folks use at the post. Can you share a little bit about the tools that you folks use?
Yeah, so this is kind of what we talked about earlier. I mean, like I said, we have a lot of tools, but these are kind of our core tools that we use to communicate things. We start in Slack, or in person if we're so blessed to do that, but we have a lot of remote staff too. So we have open channels, we have experienced teams broken out in channels. And that's kind of where a lot of our conversations start. And we have a design wiki within Confluence that supports a lot of things I mentioned earlier, like our research documents, our process, content style guides reference, anything that you would need, whether you're just getting started or you're trying to reference kind of like who was that, who runs that, or where is that resource. We have this wiki that we support. And then I'll talk about this a little bit more. We use JIRA as a way to govern our what we call initiatives, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. But kind of once rubber hits the road, when the design tasks are being created, we try to organize them within JIRA to communicate what's going on for each quarter. And then, like I said, we concept in Figma and we roadmap and we kind of create user flows in Figma and presentations in Figma. And then ultimately, hopefully, if everything goes great, we then transfer those things into Zeppelin in for our handoff to engineering. This seems very waterfall-y, but it really isn't. There is no reason that it has to kind of hit all of these steps. But this is kind of the natural evolution of a more defined deliverable for our team. And to give you a little more visualization into that world, we organize ourselves by design initiatives. So these are created by leadership. So one of the new ones is create new gaming experiences on the coast and kind of leverage that initiative, right?
Something that you're a part of.
Something that I am a part of. I'm really excited to kind of dip my toes in as we're exploring the benefits of that. And you can see here, so these are our initiatives within, these are all initiatives. I blurred them out because I'm not really sure what I'm allowed to talk about. But then you can see here under here, we start assigning tasks, and these tasks are design tasks, research tasks, content tasks, or our fun regression tasks, which are just like something is, busted that we got to go look at. And then we try to start defining those initiatives as those experienced teams define those initiatives using Confluence. And then we attach those, all of it together. You can see here is an example of an old Winter Olympics one where you see the channel, you see the attached JIRA tickets, and then ideally all the Zeppelin designs are connected. So that's a real quick and dirty explanation of kind of how we manage all of the things we want to do from a design perspective, but I hope that tracks.
Yeah. So to start, leadership puts in tickets or initiatives for what you to work on. Mm-hmm. And a quick question here is, what if they have initiative that, I don't know, maybe you think that's not gonna land well, or maybe you think that there's a higher priority? How do you talk with leadership and be like, hey, there's these 5 things, initiatives that you folks want me to do, but I think, I don't know, number 3 initiative is the highest priority. Is there a dialogue that goes back and forth with you and leadership?
Yeah, so I think our leadership is great. They create these kind of initial lists with our design leads and the directors of different like engineering and product. And they create these initiatives, and it's a conversation that we talk about it, and it's not bestowed on high. These are things that they see value or have evidence towards why they will be valuable. And then they come in and through design leads, we talk about them and we see what really is manageable and what we can resource. And like I said, some of these initiatives might have a lot of context and reason why they exist, and some don't. So expect like this gaming experience, right? You can see the one task under here, if you can read it, is a competitive analysis on gaming, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like a yes or no, it's a dialogue. There's no closed doors really. And if you can make the case for it, for or against, they're very receptive. So these initiatives aren't like mandates. They are guidance on where we need to focus our time. And then we work to prioritize what we think is the most of value for a lot of different reasons. It could be because our stakeholders really need it to do their job. It could be because we see high opportunity, whether that means a found opportunity or an empty space, like this isn't being done. So like, let's explore it. And then the designers work to really make, to make that case through research and concepting, and they work with their product teams to kind of develop a direction, and then hopefully eventual tasks and features and products that come out of that.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. A good dialogue is always great to know, put your 2 cents in and figure out what to build next. And then the last thing I want to just double click into is this integration thing on the bottom. I've been hearing a lot of people, using this feature, this Zeppelin JIRA two-way integration. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you manage all your tickets in here? Or, it looks like you have the integration, so you use the integration here. It looks like you're connected to Slack as well, if my eyes don't deceive me, but it looks like it's connected to your Winter Olympics channel. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think that when projects and tasks are generated, we have design refinement meetings that are specific to design, that all people at the Post, all our product managers and engineers are welcome to come and talk to, because there might be engineering tickets as well. That will communicate and connect as much as it makes sense. Over communication can be a problem sometimes. And those refinement meetings have been really helpful. And then also our designers are then empowered to embed themselves in engineering stand-ups and product stand-ups. And those are unique to different teams. Those aren't always the same from in every group. And I at no point would claim that I am a master of what every single designer's conversation is. But then those designers then come back to that, like I said, those core experience teams, and communicate like, hey, engineering team's having these 2 stand-ups, they made these tickets that are related, I'm going to document these here. That may be in Zeppelin, that may be in a file, it might be different each time. But but that is kind of like that more of that embedded end of a hybrid culture. They go out, they get that information, they come back, and then we talk as a group and connect it to our work so that we all know what we're doing and we're communicating. When we hand off, our designs are well communicated.
Yeah, it sounds like the Zeppelin is a connecting tissue between developers and designers to give them a kind of like a platform to talk about how both those worlds kind of collide. And then once the collision happens, how do you move forward and actually build the thing that we architect or design and the thing that we want to code, right? It gives that like a common place for you to converse and to make that happen.
Yeah. And oftentimes our design deliverables, they aren't 100, they don't have every scenario. When you work with engineers, they're going to have more questions and there's going to be more details that come up. So again, like a lot of this conversation sounds waterfall-y and like, oh, okay, now we're done with the designs. But that's the great part about having these designers build relationships with their engineering teams, is that it's more of an ongoing dialogue, and it's not design getting that kind of designer head where they're like, this is my design, this is everything you get. We use Zeppelin to kind of give the initial kind of what we hope is what they'll need to know, but then could be added designs, added states, based on that communication structure that they've set up with their product teams, with their engineering teams.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Thanks for sharing that, TJ. Now moving on, for the sake of time here, because we only have about like 7 to 10 minutes left. TJ, do you want to tell the people here a little bit about gaming at Washington Post, and what does that mean, gaming at Washington Post?
Yeah, I'll say I don't know yet. Gaming is a great way to talk about our initiatives. Gaming at the Post is, it's there. It's pretty successful in what we've been learning. It's very successful for what we've been doing there. But we want to grow it, especially since the Post is looking to like personalize and find different ways for people to engage with the news. We're exploring kind of what gaming really means. Obviously, when you think of the newspaper, especially if you're older, you might think of like crosswords, and which exist and are great, and it's a very popular thing, but like word finder. But what in 2022 does gaming mean, and what can that bring to the mission of journalism? Like what does that mean? And so we're exploring a lot of ways to kind of frame that. One of the big things that we're really exploring is mission-driven gaming, and we're still trying to figure out exactly what we mean by that. But in a broad sense, we're looking for a way to give people a positive experience through the news in a way that's connected to a daily routine that's enjoyable and educational and interesting. And you hear a lot about, we talk a lot about at the Post about negative news. The last couple of years have been really rough for a lot of people. And we're always looking for ways to kind of make it feel a little better to come here, because there is good news. There's interesting news. It's just, we're so tuned to just only see, and might have to only see, some of the negatives. So we thought gaming might be a way to really elevate some of that stuff and giving a different experience to our new structure. And that, that's going to take the form of homebrew games. We have vendor partners already that we're talking to, and we're trying to really frame that initiative so we can start having an ecosystem for our games and be able to launch kind of new fun daily things that are in the vibe of the crossword.
Yeah, when you say ecosystem of games, you have to start somewhere, right? And I think you have you can pull up the Washington Post gaming site here, where you have like your foundational games or your baseline games, right? Your
yeah. So we have two kind of sections right now. We have a vendor that gives us a lot of these very classic games you've probably seen. It's pretty popular. But you can see that they're just the game part, right? And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with this. I think this gives a lot of enjoyment, and not everything needs to be super connected that we're offering. And so a lot of people get a lot of enjoyment out of a lot of the variety here. And it's a pretty good partnership, because we don't have to like to support this many games from ground up would be, we don't have the design structure to do that, or the engineering to but we also have, like I mentioned, crosswords, right? A big staple on the online news community. And we've launched some homebrew stuff like the Daily Mini, which is the mini crossword, which has been a great success. But what we want to do is kind of make it an ecosystem. We don't, we're looking at a way to like not have it be crosswords, not have it be these other games. We want it to be this offering, right? And so part of that requires us to really explore, what our users would expect of us, what we are currently seeing as being successful, and really our ability to take that first step in creating a product line of gaming that's understood by our users and is valued by our users. So it's pretty exciting, and this is the power of our initiatives, right? Our initiative was kind of more of a blank slate in this case, and so I get to work with a lot of talented engineers and product managers and content and research to really define what it means. And so it's a really fun time to be. It's a fun initiative to be in at the Post, I would say, personally, but I may be biased.
I mean, we're both gamers here, so like,
yeah.
really, joins our personal interest with our professional interests, and to your point earlier on, it's all about personalization and to your point, mission driven games that are fun, but also educational, and will want you to come back over and over again, not just once a month, but like, all the best games out there, your AAA games, your Apex, your Fortnite, and all these, people come back on it every single day, if not multiple times a day, right? And I think that's where you want to go in terms of this whole ecosystem of games that you're trying to build.
Yeah, and it's not about, like I said, it's mission driven. So we're not looking to just like hook people. We want to really add value to their day, because I think that's something that we're trying to like define. We see it as a space that's not really being, it's not a thing really as much as just gaming when connected to the news. So we see a lot of opportunity, and we're excited to kind of leverage what we've built already into a more, into more.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing that, TJ. We have a couple of questions in chat, so I'm just going to read it out to you. We have a question from Teresa saying, if someone was interested in pursuing a career in DesignOps, what skills would you recommend they focus on learning and improving?
Organization, almost anal retentively. But like I said before, try to balance that between being, you know, you're you're a helper, right? So, but you really need to have an organized mind. You have to be able to really quickly and organize things that are being thrown at you, things from leadership that might not be systemized. So it's almost taking leadership and systemizing it and making it actionable. So I would really, those are a lot of soft skills. So it's hard to say exactly how to grow those, but practice makes perfect. Your communication skills. Also, get to understand whether you can do it or not. Really understand the different elements of design. If you're not an animator, that's okay. You don't need to animate, but you should know what that looks like and how difficult that is and the information that you need to know. Same thing with graphic design, content design, research. I'm not the expert on all those things. There are talented leads in those things, but I have a lot of experience in them. So I'm able to understand where they're coming from and add assistance as they're trying to add their being the leader. So I would really try to get to know kind of the trials and tribulations of those different design skill sets. Because that's ultimately your job as a design ops, is to make things smoother and get rid of roadblocks and make sure that what they want is being communicated effectively.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you hit on a few things: organization, communication, and to knowing your design chops, right? Knowing different things about design, and the more you know, like the more seamless you could communicate and to organize all your thoughts. A quick question here: is there any tool that you use to organize it, like stuff, like a Notion or any tool like that, or
So I am the lord and operator of our wiki. So I use Confluence, but that's
okay,
kind of like
Confluence?
an enterprise tool. But Notion's great. It's got they allow sort of a free trial, so you can start there. But I also have been dabbling in a tool called it's a note-taking tool. So if you're even like smaller, I use a tool called Obsidian, which is a
Obsidian.
yes, it
Oh,
is
okay.
a wild note-taking tool. But even if that's not the case, a good file structure is kind of all you need with paper docs, right? So if you have a Dropbox account or a Google Drive account and you make a file structure that's like, these are our process documents, these are our design guides, these are our templates. You don't need, like we talked earlier, it's not really about the tool, but tools can help. But if you're a smaller organization or it's just you and you don't have the resources for some of those things, just a nice file structure with a good naming process and making sure that people know it exists and you defend it.
Cool. Well, Teresa, hopefully that answers your question. Feel free to reach out to me or TJ if you need anything else. One last question, because I know we're right on time. This question is from Hope. It's a multiple part question. She's asking, how many products do Washington Post use for design systems? And how do you manage a design system from the code standpoint?
Yeah, so excuse me. So I'm probably not the best to ask about the coding management of it all. We have some talented people who do that. But we do use Figma and Zeppelin in order to connect our design system into libraries that connect it. So from Figma, our design system is created and turned into libraries that then are referenced throughout all of our products on Figma. So they're all connected and they all have different state features that you can change. And ideally, designers aren't disconnecting those and making tweaks unless they really need to. So we use that. And then Zeppelin, as far as the code side of things, I can speak on the fact that we do have a code connected to Zeppelin. So when those things are imported, those components from Figma are imported into Zeppelin, they connect directly with that code. So the reason that's important is because the engineer, they just see a button, right? It's a component, but now they can click on it and they don't have to necessarily reference They don't have to go, oh, that's a button. I know it's a design system. They can click it and be like, that isn't a design system. And so they know exactly which repo to pull from, and they can work, it's again, that game of telephone, you're trying to eliminate it. So those are the two elements that I can speak on personally.
Cool. Well, thanks for answering that. Hopefully that answers your question. Same thing as well. If you want to have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me or to TJ here. But I think we're right on time, TJ. Is there anything you want to plug or anything that you're doing that you want the people to know about?
Yeah, just plug the Washington Post. I encourage you. We just launched a really fun year in review called Newsprint. That
Okay.
if you are a Washington Post subscriber and reader, it will kind of give you kind of what you read over the year. It's awesome.
Kind of like Spotify Rewind.
Exactly. Yeah, a
Okay.
lot like those. So it's really interesting if you're an avid reader of the Washington Post. And even if you're not, check it out. It's kind of a really neat feature. And yeah, gaming at the Washington Post. Keep an eye open. We really hope to make big moves going forward. So.
Awesome. Well, TJ, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your journey at the Post. And hopefully I could say it like the Post. And kind of sharing, what you do as a design ops lead, as a product designer for gaming, and how you kind of start your journey at the Post as just a product designer. Thank you everybody for joining today as well. Happy holidays to everybody and stay safe. And we'll see you in the new year. Take care.
Everyone. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.